from St. Anthony's. You're watching the NSCHSAA on News 12 Varsity. One of the Tri-State's best school rivalries transitions to the hardwood on a special night. This is the Hospital for Special Surgery Game of the Week. The Chaminade Flyers travel on the road to take on the Friars of St. Anthony's here in Suffolk County. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Tonight is pajama night, and while we may not look the part, we still have a role. Every bedtime needs a story. So, Dan, what is the storyline this evening?
Two champions for the last 4 years, and they've flip-flopped in each year. The reigning champions in St. Anthony's, obviously last year, such a classic game against Chaminade, on top of already a great high school rivalry. There's such a respect amongst these two schools, but let's be honest, they always want to beat one another. It is always a fantastic time. Gym is always packed, or the field is always packed, no matter where you go.
Chaminade is the enemy here on the road, so who should we look out for in terms of the chief antagonist?
The thing with Chaminade is they have a lot of different scoring options. Michael O'Connell's the guy that gets all the praise, but how about the size? Because that is one thing St. Anthony's does not have. Size down low, and Liam Drennan is a senior. He's getting some looks at the Division II, Division III level, but that 6'9" frame, he's so athletic. He can work right around the rim. He's a defensive shot blocker as well. It's going to be a real tough time here for the Friars.
Meanwhile, the hometown crowd needs a hero, so who's the protagonist tonight?
Oh, Javon Burke is a multi-sport athlete. I mean, this game itself has a ton of multi-sport athletes on it. A soccer player who dropped 23 in their last game, a win against Archbishop Malloy just this past Saturday. For a team that lost so many pieces from a year ago, 5 starters, Burke is the one guy who has been here on both title teams. He's been up since his freshman year. He can move the ball around really well, but he can also pull up and stop and pop right around that, range from 15 to 20, and also knock down a triple every now and again.
So it's a championship rematch. Cozy up for one of the best rivalries in the Tri-State. St. Anthony's against Chaminade. It's next on the HSS Game of the Week here on News 12 Varsity. Here for the first of 2 regular season meetings between Chaminade and St. Anthony's. Both teams entering tonight above 500. The third member of our broadcast team is Amanda Puglisi. No truth to the rumor that she has slippers on here on Pajama Night.
I thought about it, David, but let's be honest, in the postgame, I'd be too short without my heels. But let's get to the game at hand. Now, when you talk to Coach Bob Paul of Chaminade and you say, hey, who are your starters? And he says to you, well, it's a game-time decision, he really means that. Kieran Dorney will not be playing for Chaminade. He injured his left calf on December 28th against Francis Lewis. Coach Paul said he wanted to see how Dorney warmed up before he made his decision. The senior, Peter Barron, will fill his spot, and Coach Paul says he feels they match up much better against St. Anthony's with Barron in the starting lineup.
St. Anthony's is led by Sal Logano, his 4th season, 29th year in the building. He was also a longtime Division II coach at NYIT before taking over the Friars. So we mentioned the starting lineups. It's been shuffled for Chaminade. Here is the starting 5 with their leading scorer, Michael O'Connell, already a 2-year All-League player as he now enters his 3rd varsity season. Meanwhile, for St. Anthony's, replacing all 5 starters since the last time these two teams played last February. This is their look, including leading scorer Andre Snody in the front court. So St. Anthony's in the white, Chaminade in the red. With Dan Savarino and our entire News 12 Varsity crew, I'm David Resnick on the HSS Game of the Week, and we are underway. Speaking of injuries for Chaminade, Matthew Young, the point guard, 40 in red, back in the starting lineup after missing some time with an injury. Liam Drennan underneath, couldn't finish. All 6'9" of him as a senior. Dan, early signs, early keys that you're watching for in this first quarter?
Obviously, the size down low is definitely a big difference, even with 33 Stallone, who has a big body down there, just doesn't have the experience.
And he doesn't have the made field goal either, as it's cleared by Michael O'Connell, who's universally thought of as the best player on the floor this evening, as he opens up with a missed three.
And what's amazing about that, David, is he's never going to play basketball in college. He's a lacrosse commit.
Maybe some early jitters, as we've seen misses on both ends. And that was really part of the storyline for St. Anthony's. With 5 new starters, would this group be able to perform under the pressure of playing in this rivalry game?
And obviously, experience is a big thing. There are not as many guys on the Friar group that have the same varsity experience. And something that we heard Coach Logano mention to us numerous times, you'll hear him say, learn, learn, learn. It might be late in the shot clock that hurts them.
Trailing 3 is good. Michael O'Connell knocks it down straight away. So you mentioned playing lacrosse in college, already a commit to Maryland, but on the basketball floor, he's been a steady presence for the Flyers over the past 3 years.
Not many players at Chaminade will ever be a player or a starter or anybody in any role in any capacity as a freshman in varsity basketball. Michael O'Connell is the rare breed.
Already 50 varsity games with still a year and a half left in his career. As an illegal screen is called against Liam Drennan, picking up his first foul on the offensive end. So what's interesting about this Friar starting 5 is that you have great athletes and winners, but where they'll perform at the next level is not basketball. One of those players, Makai Murphy, will be a footballer at the next level. Stallone on the cut, couldn't handle through traffic and lost it out of bounds.
And Makai Murphy already getting a few Division I looks. To play DB in college, was a Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, we saw him during the fall, playing for Coach Reichert.
O'Connell stepping back. 1 of 3 to start for the junior star. Just 1 made field goal. That was from O'Connell. Otherwise, the Rims have provided some solid defense for both teams.
And O'Connell's role has changed over this time. With Matt Young coming into this lineup and back from injury, he's their leading point guard now.
Showing great vision on that headman feed to Peter Barron, getting the spot start tonight.
And Barron, a senior who does have some experience in the last couple of years. He was on the championship team 2 years ago.
Murphy on the baseline drive. There's a kick out for an open 3. It's off the iron for Burke, but cleaning it up is Louis Stallone for the Friars' first 2 points of the night.
He's got that big body, just a junior though. Good baseball player as well, already a commit, a verbal to Arkansas to become a pitcher.
We mentioned Murphy, and you throw in Javon Burke, who will most likely be a Division I soccer player. Great 2-man action. O'Connell setting up Barron on the cut. You mentioned the presence of Young back to the main ball handler, but that doesn't mean O'Connell is still not a playmaker in the half court.
And it's something Bob Paul told us. He loves the fact he has 2 point guards on the floor, essentially at all times.
Midway through the opening quarter, it's a 5-point lead for Chaminade here on the road. Javon Burke knocks down a 3, and a timeout taken for St. Anthony's after a positive play.
That's a big shot to make, bring it back within 2 after a really slow start from the field. Now the guys are starting to look a little more comfortable out there after the first couple of minutes. But this team, both of them really, they've just been tested from the get-go when you look at their schedule. And that's something that St. Anthony's and Chaminade, I feel in almost every sport do. They play such a difficult schedule early on in the season, which tests you for games like this in league.
You want to talk about a team or pair of teams that are ready for league play. St. Anthony's at 7-4. They've already played in 6 different showcases, including the one that they hosted, the New York Challenge. You take a look at the non-conference schedules for both these teams, and it really reads as a who's who of top programs and teams in the tri-state, and a look at the Chaminade resume to this point as we're in early 2019.
And even the losses for Chaminade this season, you lose to Cardinal Hayes, you lose to Brentwood. Those are both 3-point games. Yeah, South Shore kind of, kicked your teeth in a little bit. And, it's funny, Coach Paul even said he threw out the film as soon as it was over.
Literally.
Took the card and literally threw it in the garbage. But, see, so those kind of experiences which help you so much and which makes this team so good.
Cardinal Hayes, a contender in the AA. Brentwood, a contender in Suffolk AA. And they got walloped by South Shore, the defending PSAL champ. You want to talk about a couple of programs that will play anyone, anywhere. Chaminade this past weekend played 3 days in a row. This is their 4th game in 5 nights.
And it's a very similar thing as well for St. Anthony's, who has also played a ton of basketball in this past week alone.
Burke on the drive, had his shot altered and still banked it in. An early 5 for Javon Burke. The answer from Peter Barron leading the way for Chaminade. He's got 7 starting tonight.
And he's a guy who is known to be a shooter coming off the bench, expected to have that 6-7 role in the rotation. But boy, is he proving it, getting the start tonight.
Luke Rossi into the game for Chaminade after the timeout. One of 3 sophomores that come off the bench for the Friars, and he stepped out of bounds.
And now a little run here from Chaminade. After some made baskets, getting some lucky breaks and some good defensive stops.
Chaminade working against the zone. Barron lost the handle, leaking out is Burke for an easy 2.
And Snowdy's long arms in that passing lane that forces a turnover. Number 3, the junior.
On the baseline, Liam Drennan rising for a 2-handed flush.
And an excellent feed inside from Matt Young. As soon as he hit the lane, he knew he was going to get the slide, hit it to the big man.
Javon Burke is starting to heat up, getting into a groove. The 4-year varsity players got 9 in the first quarter.
That's the guy the ball goes through at this point of the season, and has for really the most part of this season.
Hesitation for Drennan, gets to the rack and 1. He is all of 6'9" and then some, with back-to-back powerful moves to the rim.
Well, no matter what, we know he's going to play college basketball at some point, wherever that's going to be. Liam Drennan is one of those guys who has been on this team for a couple of years, grew over time, so athletic with already a large span. And that's the thing, as we know, David, with the game of basketball in general. If you have a forward now, you have a guy who plays the 5, they have to have the ability to shoot from 15 and be athletic and get themselves to the rack. Can't just use their height to their advantage anymore. And Liam Drennan is a real good player for this group.
3rd leading scorer, top in rebounds. He gets a breather with under 90 seconds to go in the opening frame. Chaminade by 6 on the road, in front of what is a capacity but quiet crowd so far. Angelo Andino off the bench, another one of those sophomores contributing as a rotation player. Here's the steal for Burke. Behind the back, pretty look, and the finish. And the crowd gets involved with the transition. Impressive play.
Oh boy, you love what you see on that play. Immediately coming back after the basket, and then Burke with the steal and a nifty move.
Nice job by Peter Barron to use the rim to shield the ball. He's got 9 in the first quarter to match the production of Burke of St. Anthony's, who has it here, firing from straight away, and he's in a groove. Javon Burke into double figures.
He's coming off a game where he knocked down 5 triples against Archbishop Molloy this past Saturday with 23 points total. That's already his 2nd 3 in this quarter.
Shot clock is off. Ball in the hands of Michael O'Connell. Does not use the screen. O'Connell double dribbled. Put his secondary hand on the ball right before the pull-up.
You don't see that very often, so now you have just a little under 5 seconds to at least inbound the basketball. Obviously, this is probably going to go to Burke to at least attempt the final shot.
O'Connell sits with under 5 to go. Protect him from a potential foul as Jason Layden returns. Burke in front of half court, clanged it off the backboard. So a terrific first quarter after a slow start. Chaminade on the road leading 19-18 on our News 12 Varsity Game of the Week, brought to you by HSS, the #1 hospital for orthopedics with locations in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The best is now nearby. A look back at last year's championship game between St. Anthony's and Chaminade. The Flyers got off to an early start, and St. Anthony's hung around. Brendan McGuire just recently committed to Quinnipiac, hitting the 3, and then also in transition, rocking the rim at Hofstra.
But then this game just came down to the wire. St. Anthony's chipping away. Tyrone Lyons down low this time, attacking the basket. That's what St. Anthony's was able to do down the stretch. And Harewood with a nice finish, MVP honors for him. And that's what led them to the 3-point win and their second championship in 3 years.
St. Anthony's closing on a 13-3 run. And looking back to that game to now, St. Anthony's replacing all 5 starters, Chaminade with only 2 back. They only bring back the 2 points that Makai Murphy had off the bench last year compared to Chaminade. Half of their production is back tonight as the Flyers take on the Friars in our HSS Game of the Week. With Dan Savarino, I'm David Resnick. The third member of our broadcast team is Amanda Puglisi. Amanda?
Well, David, as you guys could probably guess, Coach Paul not happy that his defense gave up 18 points in that first quarter, 12 of which came from Burke, saying, hey, we're doing a good job. We like our momentum. We like the rhythm that we're running in. But as far as defense goes, we need to make more stops. We need to make him a little more uncomfortable.
Thanks very much, Amanda, as the lead changes hands on the first 2 possessions of the second. And it's amazing to look back on that game last year, Matt, Dan, the way it worked with Matt, Dan here today, as Tristan Correa puts it in. The fact that the Friars don't return a single starter, and yet they've built a program under Sal Logano in 4 years where even outsiders will acknowledge that the Friars at this point don't rebuild, they just plug in new guys.
It's something that these 2 programs in general seem to always do, and even though St. Anthony's, you lose 5 starters. I mean, how many teams would lose 5 starters and then the very next year still be in the conversation to win the league, go deep in the playoffs, maybe not the favorite in the league this year, but still will be in the conversation in this very deep league to have a very long run. It's just remarkable to think how he has coached, how this team is plugged in, and how good that this group overall has been able to perform under those lights. And a big reason why, David, is that early season schedule. You know, you get tested early on.
And whatever St. Anthony's at this point might lack in experience, the coaching staff very high on the skill level and the ability to improve throughout the year. O'Connell to a slipping Drennan, and right now today, that's the Chaminade advantage in terms of the skill of O'Connell, the experience of Drennan. Those 2 pieces might be the difference tonight in January, but maybe won't be the case come February.
No, you have a couple of 3-year varsity guys, obviously, on that roster in Drennan and O'Connell. O'Connell, who saw a lot of time as a freshman, even more last year as a sophomore, and was really the go-to, obviously, the last couple of years. You do wonder how both of these groups will end up matching up and how they progress over the time. Because we heard it, David, both coaches kind of had very similar thoughts, at least in their team, that there's a lot of growth we need to have. We think maybe one area they're a little bit closer than the other, talking about the opposition and how they're getting themselves ready at this point of the year.
They'll reset the clock to 5:45. A look at Michael O'Connell as the officiating crew just makes sure that the timing is correct. An interesting thought on O'Connell is that he was always the young guy and one of the better players on the team the last couple of years. Now he's surrounded by fellow upperclassmen, his peers, his contemporaries, and he provides such a great example of leadership for Chaminade on and off the floor as he's stuck there on 3 points after that most recent miss. Luke Rossi got away with sliding there in transition. Rossi playing a two-man game with Stallone. Some over-dribbling there by the sophomore. 5 to shoot. Baseline drive, and stepping out of bounds is Luke Rossi. And that is part of the sophomore growing pains that Sal Logano expects from his second unit, which features 3 10th graders.
He loves the fact that he has 3 sophomores on this group, that they're all gym rats, all kids that he knows he can grow over time. Something I found so interesting that he was saying, at least on the defensive side of the ball, when we spoke to him beforehand, of course O'Connell right in the mix once again, was that as these guys get older, they will start to get louder.
Talked about 2 point guards being on the floor at the same time. Well, those two, Matthew Young to Michael O'Connell, just combined for a potential 3-point play that O'Connell completes.
And see, it was Christian Daly who got caught, another one of those sophomores. A lot of the switches is the area that they're having issues with, at least early on. They want guys to be as vocal as possible. Eventually, of course, the confidence comes when you start making baskets in the front court. But when you're, at least on the defensive side, you have to watch out because you know O'Connell's going to get some of his.
Inside out, Rossi open, back of the iron. Rebound is cleared by Matthew Young, pushing without numbers. Peter Barron lost the handle. Numbers the other way. In and out for Andre Snoddy, another point-blank chance, and it's to Chaminade.
That's a real tough break, but you love what Peter Barron did there. Stayed with him the entire way, makes sure you're coming back, not taking the foul, and because of that, he keeps a foul off the board and keeps 2 points off the board as well.
Midway through the second, Chaminade has claimed a 4-point lead after it went back and forth to open the frame. Young on the baseline, slips it to Drennan, that a bit too strong, and a good box out by Louis Stallone. Crossover Burke, too hot for Snoddy, and another turnover by the Friars. Javon Burke had 12 points in the first quarter, has not scored in the second after he gained such great rhythm in the final 4 minutes of the first.
He'll be playing college soccer somewhere.
Drennan took it away, but was on the baseline. And that summons Christian Correa back to the lineup for St. Anthony's as Drennan runs back on defense.
Yeah, we've seen some misses here from O'Connell, and Coach Paul yelling at him, come on, make a layup, and trying to get under him a little bit. He knows how to motivate him. We've seen some easy misses. We've seen some tough misses for O'Connell today.
But we've seen Chaminade not look like a team playing with what Bob Paul said tongue-in-cheekly, the playing with a hangover in terms of not spending too much time thinking about their tough loss on Sunday. They came out with energy, they came out with the lead, and they're playing well here in the first half against St. Anthony's.
Yeah, but how great is that? More times than not, when you see a rivalry game come in, and usually the team right before it gets smacked.
Great vision, O'Connell to a cutting Young in transition.
And there's that 2-guard combination. Both guys can facilitate.
There was a whistle on the drive there by Burke. And the foul on Liam Drennan, his second.
This is what these 2 guards can do. Of course, you always have to give O'Connell that respect because he'll pull up on you or attack. And then Young just slips right underneath, extending the lead up to 6.
So late here in this second quarter, Liam Drennan gets replaced, picking up his second foul with 2:37 to go. Not the worst time for a Flyers big to get charged with their second personal, but that will take Liam out of the game for the final minutes of this first half. Empty trip as Matthew Young claims the rebound. O'Connell got pushed. And Sal Logano, the head coach of St. Anthony, saying, we are entering this game under the impression that O'Connell will get his points. And that's really how good O'Connell is, how much respect the St. Anthony's head coach has for the Chaminade star. And Peter Barron picks up the foul before the ball was inserted. Chaminade turns it over, up 6.
Yeah, for him, the impact guy was going to be Liam Drennan, because like we brought up before, that size that he brings to the floor, what he can do down low, wasn't sure if he can match up there. But he wanted to see them start to lower that percentage a little bit more against O'Connell as time goes on.
Murphy, an easy look to Snoddy.
And a real nice look as well. That's just using speed along the baseline.
Riley Gray is in there for Chaminade. Young try to set up Barron, leads to transition the other way. Contact, no call. A battle for the rebound underneath, and a whistle. And that is the type of hard-nosed play you come to expect from this series.
You know, with Young right there, he had a real good look underneath the basket, and sometimes you have those guys who are too often looking for a pass first. I think he could have had a real easy layup at the left block.
Under 2 minutes to play. 4-point lead for Chaminade here on the road. Snoddy had it stripped. Chaminade pushing the other way. Extra pass back to Jason Layden. Off the crossover, Riley Gray leaves it short. A tussle for the rebound. Still loose and picked up by the Flyers. Bob Paul screaming that he wants ball movement. His squad obliges. This is Barron. Off target from 3. It was ripped away by Murphy, but he was out of bounds.
That's a tough break there for St. Anthony's after a good stand. Peter Barron cooling off a little bit here in the second quarter in just this 4-point game.
Inbounder always dangerous, but it does not get back to O'Connell. Patrick Mooney for Chaminade seeing his first action of the game. Under a minute to play. O'Connell on the reset, driving with the left, puts it off the window, no. Running the other way, Burke in transition, and St. Anthony's wanted a call.
I could see why. There was definitely some contact when he went up.
And a reach-in foul on the drive by Layden.
Murphy picking up his first and slipping up.
And just the 4th team foul, so baseline out of bounds with the shot clock off. Michael O'Connell comes to get it. Makai Murphy readies himself for this defensive possession. 10 seconds to go. O'Connell navigating. Now it's Gray into the paint, and he lost the handle. 2 seconds left. Up to Gray, and the Friars will not get a shot off before the buzzer. So a rough conclusion to the second quarter, as the scoring slowed down as we have now reached halftime. 28-24, the lead for Chaminade on the road on the Deuce 12 Varsity Game of the Week, brought to you by HSS, the #1 hospital for orthopedics with locations in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The best is now nearby.
Welcome back to the pajama party that is here at St. Anthony's High School. St. Anthony's hosting Chaminade. Chaminade leading 28-24 after that first half of play. Now let's move on over to New Jersey. In New Jersey, Akbar Cook is the head basketball coach at Westside High School. It's his 5th year, but this year it's his first year as the principal of the school. And well, his responsibilities just got a whole lot bigger, as Jason Kahn from News 12 New Jersey tells us.
Akbar Cook has been coaching these players on Westside since they were in 2nd grade.
It's my job to get them into college and make sure that they're prepared for college, so I didn't want to leave them.
Even though the 42-year-old now has a much larger role at the school. As the principal, he says it's mostly about responding to emails and attending meetings.
I do got to do something about them doggone emails, man. There's a lot of them.
Don't bet against him doing something about it. The laundry room he created at Westside is proof of that. He found out kids were absent because they couldn't clean their dirty clothes. His thoughtfulness landed him on the Ellen Show, where he received a $50,000 check. That was 3 months ago. Since then, donations have come from all over the world.
I've done a lot of great things, and I'm happy that my kids are getting noticed for positive things and not always the negative.
Because he says his babies deserve it. He calls his students his babies because he feels responsible for them, just like his 3 biological sons.
If I'm away from my biological kids at home, these babies better take care of me as well.
They're trying to take care of him on the basketball court, too. Cook would like to be named New Jersey's #1 team. But more importantly, he says his job is getting them ready for life after basketball.
Unbelievable stuff there out of New Jersey. Of course, Coach Cook doing some great things on the court, off the court. And hey, David, as we mentioned on this week's shoot-around, anytime Ellen DeGeneres notices what you're doing, I mean, you got to be doing something right.
No question, Amanda, and there are plenty of great stories throughout the tri-state, and Akbar Cook at Westside is certainly one of them. Meanwhile, the cheerleaders and dancers here at St. Anthony's High School putting on a show here on Pajama Night as it is halftime, 28-24. Chaminade has the lead over St. Anthony's on the HSS Game of the Week.
Cross-training has many wellness benefits, including helping prevent common overuse injuries. Overuse injuries of the foot include tendinitis, stress fractures, and plantar fasciitis. These injuries develop over time from repetitive trauma or wear and tear. Cross-training gives your feet time to rest and repair, lessening the chances of injury. If you do develop a foot injury, see a doctor for proper diagnosis. The good news is that these types of injuries usually heal without the need for surgery. HSS, the #1 hospital for orthopedics, with locations in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The best is now nearby.
Back here on Pajama Night here at St. Anthony's as the Friars trail at halftime to Chaminade 28-24. We mentioned at the very start of the game that the starting lineup for Chaminade was up in the air right up until tip. Peter Barron might have found out just seconds before the game that he was starting, but he came out in a big way for the Flyers. Meanwhile, Javon Burke for the Friars played extremely well in the first additionally.
Yeah, you see Barron here, one of his 9 points, or 2 of his 9 points that he had in the contest, but Burke 12 of the first 18 points in this contest for 19-18. Chaminade lead after the first quarter, scoring basically cut in half. Only 9 points scored for Chaminade in the second quarter. Leon Drennan had to go to the bench with 2 personal fouls in that second quarter because we saw what he was able to do with his 7 points in the first half. But we saw the Friars start to push at points, and there were points that they were using their athleticism to their best advantage. O'Connell was fairly quiet at points because he had some misses, but he was looking all over the place. He was setting guys up like Matt Young. He was setting guys up like Peter Barron with his 9 points, like we said back in that first quarter, the first half alone. He actually was, by the way, told when they came over to the bench. That's when Bob Paul told them the starting lineup, you sit, as getting ready to come out to start for the game. But Peter Barron, a senior, a guy who's been on the bench for the most part in his time, was starting some good minutes, and then Burke cooled off in that second quarter, though, David. Missed 2 free throws and held with a big goose egg in the second.
So Burke really energizing St. Anthony's in that first quarter. as the Friars play in their third league game. Meanwhile, Chaminade in their second. And the talk amongst coaches in this league is that in previous years, in recent years, Dan, there was a separation between the top 3 and the bottom 4. There doesn't seem to be that type of distinction this year.
Now listen, Kellenberg was in the finals a few years back, and this is 4 years ago now. Holy Trinity just 2 years ago losing in the championship game to Chaminade. But now you have these other teams in the conversation. They're pretty much saying from top to bottom, both Coach Logano and Coach Paul have said the same exact thing. The seeds, basically, 1 to 6, is very, very difficult no matter what when we get to the postseason.
And while the regular season thought might be that all the teams are equal, the rest of the league is going to have to take Chaminade and St. Anthony's off of their perch. We talked about these two teams have split the last 4 titles, and these have been 2 of the teams that's really been in the mix in late February.
You expect them to be there. You expect that these 2 groups will meet 2, maybe 3 times. The year Chaminade won the championship, they had to go through, the Friars in the semifinals. So at some point, these teams seem to meet up come postseason.
Chaminade has won 3 titles in the 6 previous seasons under Bob Paul. Meanwhile, St. Anthony's has won 2 titles in the last 3. Well, we've been talking quite a bit about this Pajama Night, an annual tradition here at St. Anthony's as we continue to watch halftime performances. Let's send it over to Amanda with more on this special evening.
So, David, I was very curious as to why everyone's wearing pajamas, and I found Greg Law, who is the student council president here at St. Anthony. So, Greg, what is the tradition of Pajama Night?
Yeah, so once the school was in Smithtown, it was an all-boys school, and they had a boys routine, and they would wear pajamas and dance and do all these routines. And then in 1984, when we switched to Melville, it became co-ed, and then the girls started to come, and it got even better. And now the cheerleading team and the kickline team, they help out, and they put on a wonderful show, and it's like really fun.
So I like your pajamas a lot. Did you have these in your drawer, or did you need to maybe ask someone to go shopping for you?
I had to ask my mom, yeah, props to my mom.
A lot of props. She did a really, really great job with the pajamas. So there's a lot of routines. We have a few more minutes left until the basketball starts. So let's enjoy these great routines. Greg, thanks so much. David, we'll send it back to you guys.
Thanks so much, Amanda. Perhaps you'll have a better wardrobe for next year. Maybe all of us will be a better part of the night in years to come. Anyway, 28-24, Chaminade has the lead over St. Anthony's. The second half coming up shortly on the HSS Game of the Week. Welcome back to St. Anthony's High School. It is round 1 between Chaminade and St. Anthony's, and the Flyers with a 4-point lead at the break in our Hospital for Special Surgery Game of the Week with Dan Severino. I'm David Resnick, Amanda Puglisi, the third member of our broadcast team. And Dan, the last 3 years, Chaminade and St. Anthony's have met in the playoffs. And it's no surprise that if we look back to just the last 2, that it's split 3 aside. And while they have met for 3 straight years in the playoffs in 2016 and 2017, it was in the semifinals. Last year, we've already detailed how it was in the championship round. And it's tough to beat one of these teams 3 straight times, splitting regular season meetings in 2017 and 2018, and then an eventual rubber match winner in the playoffs.
And the last year that Chaminade or St. Anthony's won the regular season where it wasn't split during that regular season, Chaminade won both in 15-16. Guess what happened during the playoffs, though? St. Anthony's defeats Chaminade by 19 en route to their championship in 2016. So it is obviously these regular season games, you think they're going to meet once again at some point, at least in the playoffs. So you always don't see the whole picture, but either way, we just know how competitive these 2 teams have been. And you want to talk about competitive, how about this schedule?
Yeah, back to 2016, the Flyers were the #1 seed. It was their first of 3 straight regular season titles before falling in the semis. And we're definitely getting into the throes of conference play. There are some non-league games sprinkled in for the Flyers coming up, but they'll be spending a lot of their time in Nassau and Suffolk counties building up their league resume. And the same could be said for St. Anthony's, also playing a very difficult non-league schedule, but getting into things with Holy Trinity and St. Mary's and St. John the Baptist, the next 3 up.
Yeah, some of these games coming up are going to be really, really difficult for them to keep going. Obviously, there's no night off in the Nassau-Suffolk CHSAA, and that is what I think is the big reason why you have such a difficult schedule early on, because you know every night you have the ability to lose. There's no real dominant game, and both of the coaches have said this too. When you have the non-league, you know, why go out and just beat a team by 30? What are you really getting out of that? What's helping you in January and February for those games that we just saw on that schedule?
So Chaminade and St. Anthony's wrapping up their halftime warm-ups. You saw how Amanda Puglisi was getting the ear of Sal Logano before the start of the second half. Extended halftime here because of all of those great performances that we detailed during the break, but we are moments away from the start of the second half, and thinking back to last year's game here at St. Anthony's, a matchup that the Friars won. They came back from a 10-point halftime deficit. They're only trailing by 4 here, and so for this inexperienced Friars team, an opportunity to perhaps be buoyed by this home crowd and defend their home floor.
And a big thing for them is going to be the defense going forward. Obviously, this team defensively, that is really the name of the game for St. Anthony's, and Chaminade has seen some good defensive teams as of late. The Friars themselves, though, even in their losses, they've all been very, very close, so they're used to playing in these tight contests.
We are underway in the second half. Opening possession for Chaminade, leading by 4. Michael O'Connell gets called for his second double dribble of the game.
You don't see that very often. And some of these unforced turnovers for Chaminade, leaving too many opportunities here on the board for the Friars.
Stallone, Correa, Murphy, Snowdy, and Burke, the starting 5 for St. Anthony's, return as a unit to begin the second half. A foul is called on Liam Drennan, and he picks up his 3rd in the opening minute of the second half.
And he's not looking to the bench yet, Coach Paul. You know, you have the guy who people consider to be the impact coming into this game in Liam Drennan. And one guy who has that size and skill down low, and now he's playing with 3 personal fouls for here on out. You played just 28 seconds. I mean, that's going to be really tough going down the stretch.
He picked up his 2nd foul with 2:37 to go in the second quarter. Sat the duration. And his foul trouble will be something to monitor as the game progresses.
And St. Anthony's at the stripe. They've missed their last 4 attempts.
Young at the rim, had a layup roll off the iron. Crossover Burke. Stallone driving in, misses the bunny. Michael O'Connell emerges, 2-on-1. Fakes the pass and scores. Pretty move in transition by Michael O'Connell.
Back in double figures, another game for Michael O'Connell. He's got 10 now. And it's that speed that they can use to their advantage. He takes it to the basket so hard.
Maybe that transition hoop will get O'Connell going in terms of his field goal percentage. Did have 8 in the first half, but struggled from the field. Peter Barron on the pull-up, knocks it down. 9 first quarter points, was quiet in the second, and is heard from again to join O'Connell in double figures.
And how about Chaminade here extending this lead up to 8? After leaving some points on the board, the Friars did from the stripe, and then 2 good looks.
Extra pass. Off target there for Layden, but an offensive rebound. Believe this is the largest advantage for Chaminade of the night, with a chance to push it to double figures. No good for O'Connell. Another offensive rebound for the visitors. Barron, no hesitation. Another offensive rebound. And finally, Stallone comes down with the board. Murphy emerging. In transition, Andre Snody counted and one.
Well, Snody last game coming off MVP honors with 15 points and another 3 rebounds. He's a big guy who can attack the rack. But how many opportunities did Chaminade have on that other end?
Many.
It had to be like 6 or 7. I mean, you had some really good chances, and we're coming up short each time. These free throws, though, are going to really daunt the Friars.
We had a look at Saligano a moment ago. His suit jacket did not make it to the second half. O'Connell offensive rebound, spinning and splashes one down. The Flyers are really hitting the offensive glass, and that has drawn the ire of St. Anthony's coach Saligano, calling timeout.
And you could understand why, because it's all those second, third, fourth efforts. And even though that Chaminade in this quarter alone has only taken advantage of that for 2 points, you know, after the countless opportunities they got on the last few possessions, you know, it's still just demoralizing in a way when you're not getting rebounds and, you know, you have to stay back on defense for so long.
Both coaches thought that the Flyers would have the size advantage. That really didn't come to fruition in the first half. The opening 3 minutes of the second half has been a clinic on offensive rebounding.
It's little things too. It's boxing out, it's getting in the right position, it's having guys open when you tap out to those wings. You're always having guys in the right spot, even though they're only, it seems like, crashing 1, maybe 2 towards the glass.
O'Connell knows the thrill of victory as a freshman in 2017, the agony of defeat last year losing to St. Anthony's. And Bob Paul saying that his players left Hofstra that February night crying and perhaps a bit motivated, playing with a chip on their shoulder this season, but also realizing that a championship cannot be won tonight in this gym at this juncture of the season. Barron driving. Deflected off the glass, and there's O'Connell with a hustle play.
After worrying about the lefty hook of Drennan, something that was in the scouting report, quick feed inside, bounces around, and who's there crashing in the right place, right time? O'Connell, even though he misses this N1 opportunity, extending the lead back to 8.
Midway through the third quarter, back to an 8-point advantage for the Flyers after the bucket by O'Connell, who's percolating here in the third with 6 points. Murphy on the drive, comes up short. It's out of bounds to Chaminade.
A tough start here in the second half so far for the Friars, at least on the glass. And especially trying to get some looks when attacking the basket. Those were falling early on.
Matthew Coletti is in for Chaminade, did not play in the first half. Barron is tightly guarded and has to reset. Change of direction for O'Connell. Young to the rim. Matthew Young gets all the way to the rack.
And guy who missed basically all of the beginning of this season, didn't come back essentially until last week.
Lead is 10 for the Flyers, looking for more. Position underneath Drennan, but the pass was off target. Javon Burke is held on the drive. The hand check call against Matthew Young as Javon Burke looks for his first points since the intermission. Not many whistles in that first half, as Chaminade has just picked up its third team foul of the quarter. Into Stallone. Drennan has to be careful. That's 35 in red on the floor with 3 fouls. Good defense, interior for the Flyers. Burke against the mismatch. And a loose ball foul against the Friars. No, it is called against Chaminade.
I guess it was a hold at some point when skying up for that rebound. I'm not really sure where.
Referee seemed to indicate that O'Connell might have tugged at the jersey around the waist. If it was there, it was definitely blocked from our vantage point. Rossi in off the bench, but this is Snoddy. Split 2 defenders, but couldn't score. O'Connell pulls up in transition, and it spins out. Under 2 minutes to play with Luke Rossi handing it off to Javon Burke. It's interesting, he got so hot in a short period of time and hasn't scored since the first quarter.
Yeah, missed those couple of free throws, and then I feel like things just kind of started to unravel for him as well. I mean, he has a couple of points going forward, but it just doesn't look like the same Javon Burke. They've done a good job on him.
Shot clock down to 3. Catch and shoot, end of shot clock is cleared by O'Connell. Throwing a pass in transition, one more to Drennan. O'Connell deflects the outlet pass, rather, and miscued by the Flyers.
David, on that last possession, though, for St. Anthony's, that is exactly what we were talking about early on with Coach Logano telling us, listen, when the final 10 seconds of the shot clock, we may not know exactly where to be at points. That's just part of that inexperience as a group together that you start to develop over time.
Drennan takes a seat on the Chaminade bench. Played with those 3 fouls for about 7 minutes, so credit to him. Replacing him is Darian Parks, playing defense there against Snoddy and forcing the turnover.
I believe that's a 3rd time in this game we have seen a Friar player step on the baseline. Some of those unforced turnovers have plagued them. They're a team that has only scored thus far 4 points here in the 3rd quarter and 10 points since 18 opening up the 1st quarter.
Clock reset to 1:01. Chaminade enjoying a 10-point lead here on the road. They'll play again in Mineola on February 5th. And then you have to figure one more time in the playoffs. But that is not determined. Peter Barron sticks a 3. Flyers up 13, largest lead of the night.
Tying for a game high, 14 points. How about that? You get your number called to get in the start, and you take full advantage of it.
Michael O'Connell also at that mark for the Flyers. He knew he was going to start. Peter Barron didn't find out until right before the tip. Angelo Andino is fouled with just 10 seconds to go. 15 foul against the Flyers. Snoddy comes up to set the screen. Burke uses it and trapped. Thrown to the corner for a 3. That is canned by Rossi at the end of the 3rd. Luke Rossi slims the deficit to just 10, entering the fourth quarter. Chaminade 41, St. Anthony's 31, 3 quarters in the books. In our game of the week, brought to you by HSS, the #1 hospital for orthopedics with locations in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The best is now nearby. St. Anthony's added a league championship banner to the rafters because of their victory of 2018, but fell short in the state playoffs as the visitors from Chaminade enjoy a 10-point lead. As we welcome you back to St. Anthony's to begin the fourth quarter, 41-31 to the visitors with 8 minutes in regulation to play. With Dan Severino, I'm David Resnick, our entire News 12 varsity crew, Amanda Puglisi, the third member of our broadcast team, here in Melville, Suffolk County on Pajama Night. 8 more minutes until everybody could be tucked in.
Next year, we have to do this. I'm already saying it right now.
You're planning your outfit in your head. I can feel
absolutely. It'd be so much. I mean, not that I love wearing a suit, but who
to
doesn't
sleep?
Well, not to sleep though. That's what I'm saying. Who doesn't love to be comfortable?
That's what Sal Logano, the head coach of St. Anthony, said. He wasn't really much of a PJs guy, so that's why he's wearing his normal dress. He might not sleep tonight if the Friars continue to turn it over. Chaminade led by 13 in the third. Double figures to start the fourth. Great two-man game. Loose ball picked up, nearly flung in by Layden. Rossi hit a 3 to end the third quarter to cut into the deficit. This is another sophomore, Angelo Andino.
Well, that 3 before the break was huge, because if not, it would have been outscored 13-4.
It's now 6 straight for the Friars. Make it 8 in a row. Javon Burke, transition 2.
And see what the 3 ball does for you. It opens up some space. You're showing you have the 3-point shooters. You get yourself back into this, and now Bob Paul calling a timeout for Chaminade. Just like that, when you felt the Flyers were going to start pulling away here, the St. Anthony's Friars with the 3 ball and then eventually a steal turning into 2 points brings them right back.
It is 8 in a row, a pair of 3s in that transition 2. They teach math here at St. Anthony's High School. And the Friars have scored the only point so far in this third quarter.
You know, they love what they did in their last game against Archbishop Molloy, and maybe Molloy not the same team, of course, and Coach Logano will say it, of course, we don't have 2 NBA prospects on the opposite end of the bench this year, but still a very good win. Felt things were finally just starting to come together in terms of their confidence, and just everything else really starting to play with that flow. When you saw those last couple of plays, those last 2 baskets, there's that flow he's talking about. Good ball movement to the corner for the triple, and then eventually the steal turning into 2.
St. Anthony's has won their last 2, sitting at 7-4. Meanwhile, Chaminade 6-3. They had a 4-game winning streak snapped on Sunday. Great play out of the timeout. Liam Drennan to a cutting Michael O'Connell, and that should settle things for Chaminade as they end the 8-0 St. Anthony's run.
That's what you also like about O'Connell. He's not afraid to go right around those gritty areas near the basket.
Pull up for Javon Burke. Flyers struggling with that headman feed in transition. They want to locate Liam Drennan running the floor, but the connections have not been clean.
Some recruiting scouts have said one thing with Drennan is the transition game for him going forward. They want to see a little bit more, but running up ahead, got such soft hands, but just a little bit out of his reach.
5:45 to go. O'Connell's pass is stolen. Good hands there by Andino. St. Anthony's with a couple of sophomores off the bench as part of this unit in the fourth. Luke Rossi is one of them, and he delivers.
Oh, what a nice take down the left lane. The finish with the right, and you have to be wary of him because he has the ability to shoot from downtown.
12-2 run for the Friars. Nice job by Barron to locate Drennan, slipping between two defenders. Just a 5-point gain. Nice Euro step. Layden stepping through and got fouled.
A nice little transition basket. You love seeing the guys come hard to the net, and luckily everyone's okay during that situation. But Layden, another guy who's generally rotation guy, you know, playing in that 6, 7, 8 role. Got a start today and sinks the first.
More of a step over than a Euro step there, but still effective. And the time bridging the third and fourth quarter, so reminiscent of that late game run by St. Anthony's to claim the Long Island Championship last February. 10-0 run late in the fourth quarter, a 13-3 close to squeak by Chaminade by 3. First of 2 regular season matchups between these rivals that play with great respect and no animosity. Really starts from the school leadership and also the coaching staffs in each individual sport. Rivals for sure, but they go about it the right way.
And there's no team that either one of these groups likes to beat more than the other, no matter what the sport is.
Big rejection. And Dino helping up Young after blocking his shot.
And Dino's been good on the defensive end here. Here's a shot block before he stole one right in the lane on an O'Connell pass. He's had his arms very active.
Friars were really interested to learn whether or not their sophomores off the bench could handle the bright lights and the television cameras as Michael O'Connell sneaks inside. And I think the answer is a resounding yes. So win, lose, or draw for the Friars, they've got to be happy with the growth of some of their younger players.
And it's funny, Coach Logano saying to us, what was the toughest part? And we asked him, you know, what is the toughest part dealing with the young group now? He said, talking to myself and having to listen to myself too often. Wasn't used to having to teach as much. And of course, you don't want to discourage such younger players who are now playing at a higher level. But what we have seen from this group over time is they have matured a lot in just a couple of months of the varsity season to get to this point. And now it's, you know, time to shine. And we have seen them. And Dino, Rossi, I mean, those two in particular have really come to play in the last couple of quarters when St. Anthony's has struggled from the fields.
St. Anthony's calling timeout, trailing by 9. They cut the deficit in this quarter to 5 thanks to an 8-0 run, extending out to a 12-2 run. Last time our crew was here at St. Anthony's, it was a football game in the CHSFL semifinals, what turned out to be the final game for legendary head coach Rich Reichert, falling to Cardinal Hayes in a 1-5 matchup. Such a legendary figure in Suffolk County football, Catholic League football, who is still here at St. Anthony's, and while no longer the head coach of football, still a very prominent presence here for the Friars.
And he will for years to come, we know that. And Coach Reichert, just as many opposition coaches have always told us about him, he's just a true gentleman.
His career did not end with that storybook finish, did not complete with a championship, but so many wins, the most in Suffolk County history, so many championship moments and lives impacted. Matthew Young out of traffic. Good fake by Barron. Plenty of time on the shot clock as the Flyers keep it on the perimeter. Barron driving in, forced into a tough shot and got caught in the air.
So listen, it's only a 9-point game. You still have 3 minutes left. I mean, this is far from over. And as we saw from the Friars, they have the ability to shoot from downtown. They connected on 8 triples in their last game. They can do it, and that's how you can get back quickly.
And Dino could not connect that time. O'Connell with under 3 minutes to go. Spots an open teammate. Barron left a 3 short. Burke leaking out. Slips right by O'Connell. Great defense there by the junior who pulls down the rebound. Drennan in transition, stripped underneath. Fighting for the ball back. There's O'Connell, missing point blank, but another offensive rebound, and he wisely pulls it out.
And now you have to really slow this down. Smart job here by Matthew Young to do so. But what a miss on the other end by Burke. Those are 2 points that are going to haunt him, but big reason why. O'Connell standing right there and standing there in a prime position.
Great penetration. Barron to Young for the finish. Lead is 11 for the Flyers. And there is some moisture in the paint that stops play.
It's what Chaminade does so well. They move the basketball. And even though you can have guys like O'Connell really take over with a pull-up move and do it individually, creating off of the dribble, a lot of the Chaminade points today have come off of assist. And that is a big thing you like to see if you're Coach Paul. That is just what they play at their best.
Chaminade offensive rebounds defined the early stages of the second half. Grabbed a big one there to help push the lead back to double figures. And now can the Flyers close it out? They had the experience advantage entering this regular season matchup. Can they use it to solidify their road victory? Barron comes up with the steal on the cross-court pass. The lead is 11 and Chaminade in no hurry. Bob Paul was curious how his team would respond, and led by Michael O'Connell, they've done so in a positive fashion, erasing the memories of a tough loss on Sunday.
O'Connell, believe it or not, has 20 points in this game, and he's missed a lot of shots too. And that's just what he does. He gets his points.
The premise was that O'Connell would get his. Can we stop the other guys? And between Barron and Drennan, good support today for O'Connell as Chaminade is 69 seconds away from a road victory.
What you love about O'Connell is just his determination. Comes from a good family and a family full of athletes. His brother just won a national championship in lacrosse a couple of years ago at Maryland, where, of course, Mike is already verbally committed to play lacrosse there.
St. Anthony's made it interesting in the fourth, but the Flyers converting down the stretch to pull away. The final score will not indicate how close this game was, but a well-timed stoppage by Bob Paul calling timeout, scoring out of the break. And that really stemmed the tide in terms of the run for St. Anthony's.
An 8-0 run brought it back within 3. Missed some, big chances there down the stretch. Listen, these teams will meet again next, or at least towards the end of the month, and it could be a whole different ball game. We know that. This was a fun one to watch from start to finish.
Impressive finish for Chaminade as the shot clock was turned off and the final 30 seconds run off the clock. Execution down the stretch for the visitors. The rematch is on February 5th at Chaminade, but for now, the Flyers can enjoy a big victory in this rivalry. So once again, the final score, 55-40, the victory for Chaminade. In our Game of the Week, brought to you by HSS, the #1 hospital for orthopedics with locations in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The best is now nearby. 55-40, the final in favor of Chaminade taking down St. Anthony's. There is that old sports adage that you always have to be ready, and Peter Barron was. He's standing by with Amanda.
So, Peter, you're used to being in that starting role, but tonight, when did you find out that you were going to be starting, and what was going through your mind when Coach gave you the news?
I found out I was going to be starting right before the game. I had no idea, but I was ready to accept the challenge. We have a next man up mentality at the school, and I was just ready to come in and work hard and play my best.
You need that next man up mentality, especially with all the injuries that has plagued your team so far. So what was your individual mindset coming into today's game, knowing you're going to be missing some key players?
I just knew I had to play my role that I've been doing all season. I had to work hard, start to the defensive end, and then just play within the system, and that's what I did.
Coach Paul told us that there was a little bit of a bad taste in everyone's mouth and unfinished business because of the way the season ended last year. Coming into today's game, how important was it for you guys to get this victory here on St. Anthony's court?
It was definitely a statement game. We thought we were the better team last year, and we didn't get it done, so we made sure we came in with the mindset we have to get it done this year, and we made sure they knew it when we came out on the court today.
All right, Peter, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, back to you.
15-point win for Chaminade certainly makes an opening statement as they take down St. Anthony's on the road. Peter Barron, our player of the game. How about, Dan, the top play from this evening's contest?
I mean, it was a few good ones here. And how about this pass from O'Connell, hitting the guy who's usually dropping the dimes at number 40, Matthew Young. It's just one of the many great looks and cuts that we saw from the Flyer group tonight, which shares the ball so well in so many different aspects and leading them to a 15-point win.
Such great ball movement by the Flyers, all adding up to a 15-point, 55-40 victory over St. Anthony's. Well, on pajama night here at St. Anthony's, the Friars brought a great atmosphere, but Chaminade just a bit too much in this championship rematch. Round one in 2018-19 goes to the Flyers with the 15-point victory on the road. So for Dan Severino and Amanda Puglisi and our entire News 12 Varsity crew, I'm David Resnick. Thanks for joining us on our Game of the Week, brought to you by HSS, the #1 hospital for orthopedics, with locations in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The best is now nearby. Good night from Melville.